Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishacharachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Ramannasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhavatu Me Bho Rama Mamuddhara Samasta Janakalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Pranaschakshushrotramatho Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Ma Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranamastvanirakaranam me astu Tadatmani nirateya upanishatsu dharmaha te mayi santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In Nididhyasanam, we have been seeing in Vedanta Sara, what is Nididhyasanam? Removing all Vijatiya Pratyayas and having Sajatiya Pratyaya. Vijatiya Pratyaya means whatever erroneous notions one might have about oneself, removing all of that or replacing that with Lakshana of Brahma. And you'll notice if you take all Vijatiya Pratyayas at the same time, it will get very overwhelming. Now, what can be the Vijatiya Pratyayas? One Vijatiya Pratyaya example is, I am born and I will perish. So I identified with body as this Vijatiya Pratyaya. Another Vijatiya means of two different nature. I is referring to, really speaking, pure consciousness, and perishing refers to the body. But both have come together. That is why it is called as Vijatiya Pratyaya. Now, like this, there are several Vijatiya Pratyayas. But what we have to do more closely is identify them in a way that we can relate to it. Saying that I am the body is one level. Saying I am born and I will perish is something more relatable to us. So for every aspect of Vijatiya Pratyaya, more we can fine-tune that understanding or try to appreciate how that Vijatiya Pratyaya is playing a role in our life. Easier will be the removal part. So even Kartrutva, when we say, what is the applied meaning of Kartrutva? Tell me one word. Doership we know. Doership we know is one word that we generally use for Kartrutva, doership. But how does doership express in our life? Desire to respond. Desire to do something in the world for happiness. That also we can add. That is one expression of Kartrutva. Now Nididhyasanam should be, I am that Ananda Swarupa Brahma. I don't need to do any karma to be happy. So traditionally they would do some yajna yagadi to be happy and go to Swarga. But our Viparit Bhavanas will not be of that kind. Right? We are not going to do some Vaidika karma for Laukika Sukham, means worldly happiness, according to the Viparit Bhavnas we are having, appreciating that, and then accordingly finding the Upanishadic perspective. That is the whole purpose of meditation. That is what we are striving for in meditation. Bhoktrutva, enjoyership. Alternate words. Seeking completeness in the world. Anything else? Fulfillment, but through the world. That is the main thing, because Vedanta is telling us our true nature is fulfillment. Vedanta is telling us our true nature is contentment, but because of ignorance or avichara, one takes bhoktrutva as their own essential nature, kartrutva as our own essential nature. So this desire to experience the world, some thought saying that if this thing happens, then I'll be happy. Either in desha, or in kala, or with vastu, or vyakti. All four are there. Desha means location, time, object, person. Means seeking some paristhiti, seeking some situation. That is an expression of our bhoktrutva. The point I wanted to say was, one has to keep reflecting upon even these technical words. Then only it becomes closer to us. We can appreciate this kartrutva, bhoktrutva in a more specific way. Otherwise, to make ahankara as drishya is very difficult. You know why? Because we most of the time sit in ahankara. Sitting in ahankara to make ahankara drishya is almost next to impossible. So the way of distancing this ahankara is to think about how ahankara is expressing. How it is wanting to do something for happiness, how it is wanting to experience something for happiness. Those are the ways in which we can catch hold of this ahankara and make it drishya. Otherwise, if you only say, make ahankara drishya, sitting in ahankara, we will look for somebody else who is ahankara and try to make that as drishya. These are some difficulties we will come across when we start this practice. But more we appreciate what Vedantic meditation is about, we'll enjoy it even more. In the last session, we had seen, this we had seen in last to last session, but we have to keep reminding ourselves in this Bhashya, what is Bhagwan indicating by the word Ishwara? So Vedanta's main teaching is to tell us that from the same consciousness, two types of conditionings were superimposed. On the same consciousness, two types of conditionings were superimposed. Not that Vedanta wanted to superimpose. It becomes easier for us to appreciate that pure consciousness through these two conditionings. In some advanced text, Jiva conditioning will not even be discussed. For example, in Mandukya Upanishad, they will say, dissolve these conditionings into total conditionings first. Why do you have to discuss Panchakosha separately? Logically speaking also, Vyashti Panchakosha is not different from Samashti Panchakosha. So just dissolve it into Samashti and think from that standpoint. But it's not easy. Means when you think about Sthula Sharira, in that prakriya, entire creation should come in mind as Sthula Sharira. When I think about mind, Hiranyagarbha should come in mind if you dissolve individual mind in total mind. We saw this in Vedanta Sara also. Between Vyashti and Samashti, it was said there is no Bheda. With Upadhi. With Upadhi. Means, how did you understand that? Not to say that Jiva is Ishwara with Upadhi. It is to say there is only total Upadhi. Because I have so much of identification with Vyashti Upadhi, this separation was done between Jiva Upadhi and Ishwara Upadhi. The whole point is to abide in that Chaitanya only. Either you go through Bahujiva Vada, either you go to this first option, right, where you have different Jivas, or you dissolve all conditionings into one and say there is only one Jiva. Inquire in either way. What we really want is freedom from Ragadvesha through that sadhana and abidance in that non-dual truth. So here, Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, the lakshartha of Ishvara is Shuddha Chaitanya. The implied meaning of the word Ishvara is pure consciousness. This is the main teaching in Vedanta. To remove the notion that Bhagavan is Paroksha. He is somebody who is sitting somewhere. To remove this notion, Mahavakya has come. On the strength of that Mahavakya, we come to this conclusion that Lakshartha of Ishvara is Shuddha Chaitanya, implied meaning. So now Bhagavan will use the term Ishvara synonymously, interchangeably with the word Ishvara. Shuddha Chaitanya and Ishvara, he will use it interchangeably. So for example, we are familiar with this statement, right? Sukha Dukkha is a superimposition in consciousness. Sukha and Dukkha, my thoughts which are coming, they are really speaking superimposed on the substratum which is pure consciousness. Right? This statement we are comfortable with. Instead of saying that, Bhagavan will say, Sukha Dukkha or Samsara is a superimposition on Ishvara. We saw that, right? Last time in Bhashya he says, Sukha Dukkha is a superimposition in Ishvara. So how should we understand this? Essential nature of Ishvara is Chaitanya. And there are no two Chaitanyas. One Jiva Chaitanya, another Ishvara Chaitanya. Okay, there is only one Chaitanya, Shuddha Chaitanya. Now we had seen the student, in spite of listening to all this, he still has a challenge in understanding. Because right from childhood he is taught, Bhagavan is somebody who is perfect. There might be many imperfections in Jiva. What he has learnt is, Bhagavan is perfect. Have you seen Bhagavan Krishna ever crying? Even if he cries, that is his Leela. He will not cry because of sorrow, Sukha Dukkha from the world outside, and so on. He says Bhagavan is always free, ever free, that is our Bhagavan. Now Vedanta came and told him, same Bhagavan is a substratum of Jiva. This statement, Ishvara is Atma of Jiva. Atma word, if you are getting confused with Shuddha Chaitanya, here put it as Ishvara is substratum of Jiva. Atma there is substratum. Like we had seen the example, rope is the Atma of snake. Means what? Rope is the substratum of snake. In the same way, Ishvara is Atma of Jiva. This statement when he hears, he feels, if Ishvara is Atma of Jiva, won't my samsara go to Bhagavan? Won't Jiva's samsara go to Bhagavan? Right? Substratum will get affected by whatever is there in that substratum. So that is his doubt. So then what are the two options he has? One option is keep Bhagavan different from yourself. Keep Ishvara as separate from Jiva. At least Bhagavan will not get samsara of Jiva. means he can reconcile that in his mind. Or second is, try to inquire how this samsara is appearing in Ishvara. How this samsara can really appear in consciousness, that one can inquire. And we'll come to realize that it's only an appearance, it is not really there. One real thing, second unreal thing, both can coexist. Real rope, unreal snake can coexist. So real Chaitanya and unreal samsara, sukha dukkha, that can coexist. This is the thread of chain of thoughts over here. That first he said, Bhagwan's existence only he questioned. The first Purva Paksha who came. So through karma, Bhagwan explained how we need presence of Ishvara. But now he is asking, how can I be one with God? How can Jiva be one with Ishvara? And he is coming up with different doubts. So one of the doubt was this: if Jiva is one with Ishvara, Ishvara is a substratum of Jiva, won't Ishvara become samsari? Remember, this is the doubt that Sati ji had when she saw Bhagwan Rama crying for Sita ji. She said people call him Satchidananda. Right at that point, Bhagwan Shiva also did that. Jaya Satchidananda Agapavana Asa kahe chalevu manoja nisavana. Bhagwan Shiva bowed down to Bhagwan Rama, who was lamenting, crying, and said, Jai Satchidananda. And Satiji thought, if he is Ananda Swarupa, why is he crying? If he is Sarvajna, Chaitanya Swarupa, all-knowing, doesn't he know where Sita ji is? Why is he going from tree to tree? And Lord Shiva tried to explain to her, samsara can never appear in Ishvara. Samsara can never appear in Ishvara. His true essence is Shuddha Chaitanya. And we saw how is Ishvara's Jnanam? Ishvara Jnanam is something which never loses sight of this, even while doing Leela. Even while Bhagwan is doing all the Leelas, he doesn't lose sight of this Jnanam. Nitya Jnana Swarupa is Bhagwan. But then Satiji doesn't accept. Goes through a lot of tapasya. Then when she is born as Parvati ji, Bhagwan Shiva gives Shiva Gita. But the whole teaching, the same thing is repeated again. That essential nature of Bhagwan is Shuddha Chaitanya. In this Chaitanya, no samsara can appear. Although you see him crying, really speaking, he is not crying. Okay, this is a different way of looking at what we had seen in the last session. Now, Bhagwan gave two examples, what we saw in the last session. One example was, now what is this example? It is to show how superimposition happens erroneously. That samsara belongs to the antakarana, it belongs to the mind, but it is getting superimposed on pure consciousness, Ishvara. First example was of sun, which becomes the enlivener of day and night. Enlivener of day, opposite of it is night. But because sun is this nimitta, he becomes the enlivener, doership gets superimposed on the sun. We make statements like, sun brought about day. Sun is not there, that's why there is night. Or sun enlivens the world. Sun has risen, sun has set. Now, really speaking, there is no action that the sun is doing, but because it's an enlivener, from the conditioning standpoint, doership gets superimposed on the sun. So here also, from ahankara standpoint, from samsari thoughts standpoint, superimposition happens of that samsara on Ishvara. Or you put it in another way, this is superimposition of samsara happens on consciousness. Think of it this way. Is consciousness different from me or is it me? It is me. Whenever I think of samsara, do I think of it as different from me or do I think of it in me? In me. That is this whole discussion. How can samsara and Shuddha Chaitanya appear together? He says they can appear together because one is real, another is unreal. Non-perception of samsara, that is part of sadhana. Non-perception of samsara, that is part of sadhana. But in spite of doing all sadhanas, some samsara will still remain. That is why we need Vedanta. That is why we need Vedanta. Means one cannot live our life and expect absolute freedom by giving reality to this mind, by giving reality to finitude, and giving reality to the world. So both sides we should appreciate. Sadhana part to reduce samsari thoughts. Vedanta is not endorsing samsara here. It's only saying that absolute freedom from samsara is not possible unless we know that samsara to be mithya. Then the other part, second example was given of the cloud covering the sun. This person makes a statement that cloud has covered the sun. If this darkness in the sun was essential nature of the sun, then it is said other place also sun would not be shining. But it's only because of that ignorance which is there, or the cloud which is there, covering his vision. Line of sight is getting covered by the cloud. That is superimposed on the sun. So he's superimposing darkness, which is really because of that cloud, on the sun and saying that sun is not shining today. This is in the same way when thoughts cloud our intellect. A lot of other thoughts are gushing through our mind. One starts wondering, where is this Atma? Where is this Chaitanya? It's as though not available to that person. But knowledge is to recognize that Chaitanya in and through that samsara. This cloud is example of samsara. What covers our blissful self, just like this cloud is covering the vision of sight and in turn the sun. Okay. This I'll just read because I want to discuss another topic today. Okay, which is, I think, very important whenever we look at these topics of Jiva-Ishwara Aikya. So this is just exactly what we saw in the previous slide. Atma Drushti Anurupa Adhyaropacha. Bhagavan is saying Adhyaropa happens, superimposition happens according to our ignorance. All this samsara is really not there in Chaitanya. Because of ignorance, we superimpose nature of thoughts onto ourselves, which is Chaitanya. Both things are important. We should keep hammering this point that what they are talking about is really about me. Sometimes we are comfortable with saying thoughts are a superimposition on Chaitanya. Samsara is a superimposition on Chaitanya, but it should come into first person. Samsara is a superimposition on Aham. Yatha Ghanadi Viprakirne Ambare. Just like the space which is covered by sky, which is covered by clouds. Yena eva savitru prakashaha na drishyate. This person says, because of this, sunlight is not there over here. Sun is not shining over here. Sunlight is not seen over here. Translating Sanskritam in English is very hard, directly. Sa atmadrushti anurupam eva adhyasyati. Everybody is superimposing based on their own ignorance. Savita idanim iha na prakasheti iti sati eva prakashe anyatra bhrantya. Anyatra bhrantya means he is saying somewhere else sun is shining very brightly. So this statement, sun is not shining here today, it is only due to his conditioning. It is not really the nature of sun. That is the main message over here. You saw that person, right? On one person's head there is a cloud, another person has a different statement to make. So Jivan Mukta Purusha is like that other person, who never sees samsara in aham. Okay. Evam iha Bauddhadi vritti udbhava abhibhava akula bhrantya. Bauddhadi vritti means thoughts in the buddhi. Different thoughts are there. Udbhava abhibhava. They keep rising, they keep setting. Continuously thoughts are rising and different thoughts are coming in our mind. If somebody is getting carried away with them, identifies with them, that person superimposes nature of thought onto himself. Udbhava abhibhava akula bhrantya adhyaropitah sukha dukkhadi yogaha upapadyate. Sukha and dukkha is only when we get carried away with thoughts, we give reality to that thought and identify that thought to be our nature. But we had seen the sadhana. If mind is too chaotic, it is racing very quickly, to appreciate this point is almost impossible. That I am not the thought, I am that asamsari atma. So what is the sadhana Bhagwan mentions in Bhagavad Gita for a meditator? Bhagwan says, becoming udasina. Udasina means being very alert in vyavahara, not getting carried away with every single thing in vyavahara. Suhrun, mitra, ari, udasina, madhyastha, dveshya, bandhushu. Sadhushu api, even good people. Kahunako sukha-dukha karadata, nijakruta karma bhoga sababhrata. Even if you are getting joy from somebody, not to get carried away by that vyavahara. This is only that person can manage his thoughts. Manage his thoughts meaning quantity of thought and quality of thoughts. Right? How do we reduce the quantity of thoughts? Say, be alert in vyavahara. Sitting down and thinking, what is the nature of thoughts that are coming to my mind? Some thoughts will be kartavya related, which we cannot drop. Right? Moment we take responsibilities, moment nitya karma is done, job is there, so many other things are there. Some thoughts will be kartavya related. But many thoughts are there which are kamya and nishiddha related. Right? Which are coming out of either kamya karma or nishiddha karma. So those thoughts, if one can reduce, then the quantity of thoughts can go down. Okay. All right. This is something we have seen before. Now Bhagwan is quoting from Smriti, Bhagavad Gita. This is Tat Smaranacha. In Smriti also it is said, Tasya eva Ishwarasya eva hi smaranam. If somebody says, I believe only in Upanishad mantras, even if you quote Smriti, it is not pramanika. So Bhagwan is bringing here the word Ishwara eva hi smaranam. This is Bhagavad Gita is something which is given by Bhagwan only. Vedas have emerged from the Lord. Bhagavad Gita also has emerged from same Bhagwan. Ishwara eva hi smaranam matta smrutir jnanam apohanam cha. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan says, Smriti, ability to recollect, ability to comprehend a thing clearly. And I don't think we should call it ability. Actually, it's an ability to forget. Imagine if we were to remember every single thing that we have experienced. Not only in this Janma, previous Janmas also. How difficult our life would be. Bhagwan says, Apohanam also is because of me only. Now, what is this example for? He says, I become the nimitta. Consciousness becomes the nimitta for smriti, for jnanam, and apohanam. Just like the sun became nimitta for all transactions in the world, consciousness becomes a nimitta for all thoughts. 3 examples are given. Smriti is one thought, remembering, recollection. Jnanam is knowledge. And apohanam is forgetfulness. But we should include all other thoughts. Consciousness becomes nimitta for that. Because it becomes nimitta, thought gets superimposed on consciousness. That's why the second quotation comes, Nadatte kasyachit papam. That in spite of being nimitta, I don't get affected by nature of thoughts. Chaitanya doesn't get affected by nature of thought. Ityadi. Ataha nitya muktaha ekasmin savitari iva loka avidya adhyaropitam ishware samsaritvam. Although it is nitya mukta, Chaitanya is nitya mukta. Ekasmin savitari iva. Just like in the case of sun, superimposition happened. Here also, superimposition happening of samsara. Due to what? He says avidya. Due to ignorance, nature of thought is being superimposed upon I. And what is the nature of this samsara? Is it absolutely real? He says, no, it's adhyaropitam. It is just like that mirage water appearing in desert sand. Now you could have said, Chaitanya samsaritvam adhyaropitam. Sakshini adhyaropitam samsaritvam. Means samsara is superimposed in Sakshi, samsara is superimposed in Chaitanya. But see what Bhagavan says here. Ishware samsaritvam adhyaropitam. Samsara is superimposed in Ishwara. So he expects us to keep thinking in this direction, that essential nature of Ishwara is Shuddha Chaitanya. In that Chaitanya, no samsara can appear. Shastradi pramanyat abhyupagamat asamsaritvam iti avirotaha. There is Shastra pramana also, which is this only. Matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha and nadatte kasyachit papam, to show that in Ishwara there can be no samsara. This in several other texts we will see. Like in Bhagavatam, there is a story that comes when Bhagwan Krishna takes his avatara back. That is when Arjuna comes to Yudhishthira and he profusely cries. Yudhishthira is asking several questions at that point. He gives a list of things because of which a person's teja can go down. Brilliance can go down. He gives a list of reasons. Finally, he says, Arjuna is somebody who could not have done any of that. He says, Arjuna, tell me what happened. And it is said at that point, he remembers Bhagwan Krishna very intensely. He remembers all the teaching Bhagwan had given him. And there it is said in Bhagavatam that Arjuna's Linga Sharira Bhanga happens. Linga Sharira Bhanga happens. Now what is Linga Sharira Bhanga? Jivatva Bhanga happens. Notion of finitude, that goes away. Whatever is said in Bhagavad Gita, that teaching becomes alive to him once again. So that is this whole part of removing samsaritvam. Removing samsaritvam means removing jivatva. Removing this notion that I am karta, I am bhokta. Okay. Now there is one point which I think if we appreciate, all this discussion becomes relatively easy. Because there might be questions around. We were going at one pace. What was that pace? Establishing the presence of Ishwara. And that part was very beautiful. So much of logic was used, and karma phala, kalantara phala karma was there, and we established presence of Ishwara. But now it seems like a uphill curve, uphill task, just looking at Ishwara as Atma of Jiva, or Ishwara as substratum of Jiva. So what is Vedanta trying to say? This portion, if we appreciate, we'll get a good hold over Sadhana perspective and Siddhanta perspective. What does Vedanta really want us to accomplish as far as sadhana is concerned? What does it want us to accomplish as far as Siddhanta is concerned? Okay, both will get a good hold if you appreciate these things. It is said there are three entities we are familiar with. The first thing we are familiar with is Jiva. Jiva means I. Whatever that understanding of I is. This person says, I am this individual. That is a Jiva. I have a physical body. I have a mind. This also he'll come to know only when he studies Tattva Bodha. That I have Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira. So Jiva is there. That is something we are familiar with. Second entity we are familiar with is the world outside. Inert world outside. Let us start with that. Trees are there, mountains are there, rivers are there. The world around, that is called as Jagat. These two things we don't have any doubt. I am there, world is there. Now comes within the world there are people. There are other jivas which are there in this Jagat. Jiva, Jagat, and other jivas. See, other jivas we don't include in Aham. Other jivas are part of Jagat only. That's why this set doesn't come here. Right? We think I am this person and everybody else is different from me. Jiva is there, Jagat is there in front. Now, if he has done some thinking, studied Kenopanishad, Ishwara Siddhi Parkarnam, or if he has studied Upadesha Sara, or if he has lived a good dharmic life, he has no doubt, in addition to these two entities, there is somebody who has been very kind, very graceful at every step of my life. He says that is Bhagavan. Three entities are the starting point of our vichara. Jiva, Jagat, and Ishwara. Now, once these three are there, we start our journey by having differences or by seeing differences between these three entities. So our rishis, they have classified what are these differences. The first difference is Ishwara Jagat Bheda. Don't directly start with Jeeva-Ishwara Bheda. That is the last Bheda. The first difference that we are generally familiar with or we start our journey with is this thought that Bhagwan is somebody who is somewhere. He doesn't have doubt about Bhagwan's presence. But he says he is not here right now. Bhagwan is somewhere and world is something which is totally different from Bhagwan. Jagat is something, Ishwara is something. That Bheda is called as Ishwara Jagat Bheda. Second Bheda is two objects of the world, he sees them to be different. Two objects of the world, he thinks them to be different. Means though that object which he has fascination for, he has raga towards that object. Another object which he doesn't like, he has dvesha towards that object. Raga and dvesha is there. But most importantly, he is seeing two objects of the world as different. This is called as Jagat Bheda. Jagat Bheda. Third is, he feels I am different and world is different. I am the experiencer, world is experienced. I am different and world is different. This is the third Bheda between these three entities. Fourth Bheda is Jeeva-Jeeva Bheda. He says person A is different, person B is different, and I am different from both of them. This is Jeeva-Jeeva Bheda. And between that also, there will be Raga-Dvesha. Right? The one who gives Sukham, that Jiva he'll want to keep closer. And wherever there is Dukkham, that Jiva he'll want to keep away. Okay, this is the fourth Bheda called as Jeeva-Jeeva Bheda. Last one is Jeeva-Ishwara Bheda. Difference between I and Bhagwan. That is the fifth Bheda. Why are we discussing all of this? Vedanta says, with the understanding of non-dual truth, with the understanding of Shuddha Chaitanya, all these five Bhedas should get dissolved. All five Bhedas should get dissolved. Only Shuddha Chaitanya should remain. That non-dual truth should remain. But the thing is, directly to appreciate Siddhanta is difficult. So our Rishis, they have given us sadhana perspectives to deal with all Bhedas, and that person is led to Siddhanta perspective of dissolving all Bhedas. Sadhana is resolving, Siddhanta is dissolving. And both we have to appreciate. One cannot just hold on to dissolving, then will not be appreciating Vedanta as much. But at the same time, if we stay only in resolving, very quickly that person has to understand that this is not a permanent solution. Okay. So we'll see each Bheda from a sadhana standpoint and Siddhanta standpoint. The reason I'm bringing this up is Bhagavan is going to mention in Bhashya later. He says Jeeva-Jeeva Bheda is also not there. Until now we were seeing Jeeva-Ishwara Bheda. He says Jeeva-Jeeva Bheda is also not there. First, let us start with Ishwara Jagat Bheda. God is somewhere and creation is somewhere else. This difference, what is the sadhana to dissolve? What is the sadhana to resolve? Not dissolve yet. How do we look at Jagat as not different from Ishwara? This also comes to Shravanam only. To appreciate Bhagwan's nature as Vishwarupa. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan says, Mattah parataram nanyate kinchidasti dhananjaya. Arjuna, in this entire creation, there is nothing which is independent of me. Mattah parataram nanyate kinchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. All objects are pervaded by me. Just like that thread pervades all the beads. Now this is at a sadhana level. That whenever the sadhaka sees Jagat, he sees Jagat as Bhagwan's Vibhuti. What looked to him very mundane, what looked to him just like any other object. Entire Vibhuti Yoga is to bring this idea, see divinity there. So he might be driving, he might be doing some everyday task. In that ordinary thing, he is putting forth effort to see Bhagavan. In Jagat, driving, when you see that beautiful landscape, one thing is to appreciate landscape. Another thing is to do Bhagavad Darshan in that landscape. Bhagavan Raman Maharshi is writing about Arunachala mountain. He sees that as Lord Shiva, not as Pancha Mahabhuta, some mountain which is there. Taponji Maharaj going to Kailash, wandering in the Himalayas, he writes about Bhagavad Darshan through creation, Bhagavad Darshan through landscape. That also will not naturally happen. That one day suddenly we start seeing Jagat as Ishwara. That is sadhana. Consciously he puts forth effort to remove this bheda between Ishwara and Jagat. And time and again Bhagavan mentions this in Bhagavatam. Even to gopis, that is the main thing Bhagavan mentions later when they ask, why did you go away? Once you went to Dwarka, you never met us again. Later on, when they meet in Syamanta Panchaka Lake, Bhagavan's teaching to them is, I want you to understand me as Sarvarupa, not only as Ekarupa. Why do you think I am there in Dwarka? I am not there in Vrindavan. So appreciating Bhagavan's nature as Jagat, whenever we think of the world, this devotee's mind thinks of the Lord. And within Jagat also, if he has thought about it, Jagat Bheda should go away. How will it go away? Simple thing is, if everything is my Bhagavan only, where is the point of making, where is the question of making difference between object A and object B? For example, this physical body, can I say my right hand is me, but left hand is not me? Right? Once I have I notion in this whole Sharira, both objects are the same. So if somebody has understood entire Jagat as Bhagavan, there is no reason to make distinction between object A and object B. This is a devotional way of looking at it. Rama bina kachu dekata nahi. This devotee doesn't see objects in the world, he sees entire world as Bhagavan Rama. Now this was just the sadhana part of looking at Ishwara Jagat Bheda and Jagat Bheda. Of course, technically you can look at it, everything is Pancha Mahabhuta only. So where is Jagat Bheda coming from? But the devotional path is sweeter. Entire creation is Bhagavan. Why distinguish between objects and then have raga dvesha towards something, try to keep something away? Okay. Now the second Bheda is Jeeva-Jagat Bheda. Three Bhedas, three entities were there, right? First one we saw Ishwara Jagat Bheda. Ishwara Jagat Bheda. Now the second or the third Bheda that we are going to see is Jeeva-Jagat Bheda. Okay. Fourth one, of course, is Jiva-Jeeva Bheda. That also will come to. Now when it comes to Jeeva-Jagat Bheda, what is the sadhana there? Remember, this sadhaka has already understood Jagat to be Ishwara. He doesn't see Jagat as Jagat anymore. He sees Jagat as Ishwara. Then his sadhana will be Jagat Ishadhi Yukta Sevanam Ashtamurti Bhrat Deva Pujanam. Means wherever Bhagavan has placed us, whatever duties Bhagavan has given us, those duties he has converted into worship. Those duties he has transformed into worship. It needs effort. Huh? Just doing duties by itself will not become worship. Knowing that the altar to which I am offering my duties, that really is Bhagwan only. In Jagat, everything is included, right? Our work is included, family is included, relations are included, all other duties are included. So he says, I might be doing that duty one-on-one, but really speaking, I am worshipping my Bhagwan. So Jeeva-Jagat Bheda, it is not dissolved yet, but it becomes so beautiful that lot of samsara goes down even with this bhava. Jeeva-Jagat Bheda, but most importantly, knowing Jagat to be Ishwara. Otherwise, we'll always have this doubt. At some time of the day, I'm spiritual. Or if I come to a temple, if I come to an ashram and then do seva, then I feel like I'm doing seva of Bhagwan. But other time of the day, I feel like I'm materialist. I feel I'm non-spiritual. It says that bhavana should go with this thinking. Entire Jagat is expression of Bhagwan. So every work, every seva in that Jagat is really speaking worship of the Lord. Then Jeeva-Jeeva Bheda means person A is different, person B is different, and I am different from both of them. How will this Bheda go? This is through devotion only. He says, I don't see person as person. Goswamiji says, I see person as Siya Rama. I'd heard about one Swamiji. He was in India and they had this ashram. Small ashram was there. And ashram means anybody can come anytime. They'll have food. There'll be kitchen seva and everything. And people in the ashram, they would volunteer and run it. And this Swamiji was managing that place. And they have timings, 11:30 to 12:30. That's it. Lunch timing is that. At the most, probably 1 o'clock. After that, the kitchen is closed, no food available. A couple comes later, around 2:30 or something, to meet that senior Swamiji. And he asks that brahmachari who was taking care of the kitchen, is there some food remaining inside? This couple has come. And he saw inside, everything was over. He says, Swamiji, will make something quickly. That's okay. We'll make something quickly. So this brahmachari, while he was cooking inside, this couple was sitting in the dining hall. And this Swamiji, it was summer time. He's taking that hand fan, how it is. He's taking a hand fan and waving at both of them. And this brahmachari quickly came and said, Swamiji, you don't have to do it. I will do it. He said, no. You are seeing them as a couple. He says, I am seeing them as Lakshmi Narayana. So don't think that I am doing something out of place. That is my drishti. That is something that I am looking at. The point is, how do we look at jivas? Mahatma looks as Lakshmi Narayana. Jiva will look at another jiva. One more Swamiji would say, his sadhana for disciples, which he himself had done. He says, mentally just keep doing pranam. Whomever you meet, mentally just keep doing pranams. With that, chitta shuddhi will happen. Even if you don't do physically, it will be very odd. Go to the grocery store. But he says, no, mentally we can do this pranam to every jiva. That is when this bhava will come, that there is Bhagwan in this jiva. The whole point is, how do we open up these bhedas and try to internalize the message? Whatever sadhana can work for us. Okay, so this is which bheda now? Jeeva-Jagat Bheda and Jeeva-Jeeva Bheda. Both are resolved on paper. On paper. It should become something in our life. Whenever we hear all these sadhanas, on one hand, one can get inspired. On the other hand, somebody can get demotivated also. Yes, I am nowhere close. Somebody was recently discussing. He said, I read 12th chapter. And devotion is something which is very dear to me. But when we really see all the qualifications of a devotee, person feels, I am nowhere close. Yasman no dvijate lokah, lokan no dvijate chayah. Devotee is somebody in whose presence world doesn't get agitated. And he doesn't get agitated by the world. Bhagwan, this alone is sufficient. Everything falls out of place. But for this, we should read the last shloka of 12th chapter. What does Bhagwan say there? Ye tu dharmyamrutamidam yathoktam paryupasate shraddha dhana mat paramaha bhaktaha te ativa me priyaha. It's a very important shloka. Bhagwan says, Ye tu dharmyamrutamidam. Whatever I have just said in 12th chapter as qualities that a devotee should have. Even if that devotee doesn't have it, but he still worships those qualities. Yathoktam paryupasate. Upasana there is for the qualities mentioned for a bhakta. Upasana is a bhakta lakshana there, not of Bhagavan directly. He says, whatever I have told, in that he has shraddha and he is trying to work on those qualities. You ask him, why are you working on this? What will you get? He says, that I'm not concerned. That is his shraddha. He says, if Bhagavan is told, I will do it. Shraddha dhana mat paramaha. My words, they take as supreme. Those devotees are the dearest to me. Bhaktaha te ativa me priyaha. That is our hope. That shloka is our lifeline. Then the last Bheda, we'll conclude with that one. When everything is done, all 4 Bhedas are taken care of, then comes the last Bheda of Jeeva-Ishwara Bheda. Even this Bheda, from a sadhana standpoint, Raman Maharshi said in Upadesha Sara also, Bheda bhavanat soham ityasau, bhavanabhita pavani mata. Just trying to dissolve our mind in Saguna Brahma, turning our mind towards Bhagavan, that itself is very purifying. And the results are so great. Bhagavan himself says in 12th chapter, the one who is able to do that during prayer, turning mind towards the Lord, Bhagavan says, even if they don't want, I will lift them up. Tesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat. Mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha. How long will it take Bhagavan to lift me up? This is not too long. Not too long. And devotee always feels that. Whenever he has gone through a difficult time, he always feels Bhagavan did not delay too much. He came at the right time. What is the data that he has? His own life experiences. See, Adhyatma Shastra, data will always be our life. Somebody else's life, we can take inspiration. We can take some kind of positive message. But really speaking, if you have to get conviction, we have to become scientists of our own life. Take data, do experiment, see what Bhagavan is saying, and match both of it. Okay. Maya aveshita chetasam. This is the main word. Maya aveshita chetasam. Maya that refers to Bhagavan Saguna Rupa. So if one can dissolve oneself in the Lord, turn the mind towards the Lord, that itself is one sadhana at Jeeva-Ishwara Aikya level. All right. Siddhanta, I think we'll see after we meet in time. This is not done yet. We have just seen the sadhana part. Right? What is Vedanta trying to tell us? After we have taken care of this, we can appreciate Siddhanta part. Okay. But we can reflect on this more and more. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Hari Om, everyone. Have a safe Thanksgiving break. See you all